Okay, I'm going to be making a quick video describing the bracket system to anybody who's newer to the game or maybe doesn't fully understand the bracket system. This is coming from somebody who has a lot of hours playing this game, many years playing this game. I have a lot of experience, so I'm going to share my knowledge here. First up, whenever you look up bracket system online, you're probably going to see a table like this. It's going to describe brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to give you restrictions, when you're supposed to win the game by, and some ideas of what your deck's built around. There's a couple nuances to this that are confusing and a little misinterpreted and a little hard to explain, and they don't tell you it very well. First off, they tell you a bracket 1 is supposed to win by turn 9 or higher, or a bracket 2 is supposed to win by turn 8 or higher, so on. They're going to tell you restrictions in like bracket 2. You can't have no mass land denial, no game changers, no chaining after turns, no 2-card infinites. And then they're going to tell you the IDs of the decks. I will say, the main problems come from the win by turn blank and the restrictions. These are the confusing parts. The idea of the deck is really important and very well written. A bracket 1, you're building around a theme, not power. Bracket 1s are not inherently trying to win the game. They're not building their deck around, I'm going to try and win. They're building their deck around an idea, of a theme of their deck. Maybe your idea is that you want to play only guys in chairs. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're playing a deck where every card has to have a pyramid on it. Some theme, and you're going to sacrifice as much power as you need to be able to get to that theme. And that's what a bracket 1 is. A bracket 2 is typically you're still building around a theme. It doesn't have to be as extreme as building around specifically guys sitting in chairs, but it could be something like building around frogs or building around bats. You're building around a theme, but you're going to take that theme and you're going to put in mechanical focus. So if you're playing around rats or bats, maybe you're going to be making them big and you're going to try and swing at people with these either swamp walk rats or death touch rats, or you're going to swing at people with these flying bats that are huge. Or maybe you're going to give your bats lifelink and have vampires in your deck that take the life and use it elsewhere. You're going to give your deck a mechanical focus to try and win the game, but you're still kind of building around a theme. Bracket 3 is when you take away pretty much all of the theming of decks and you are just playing to win the game. You're playing a deck that is designed to do well, that is designed to win the game, and you are you're only restricting yourself by still following some cards that you maybe like in the decks, or maybe are just following some things that aren't meta. And then bracket 4 is you are completely just using cards that fit into the meta and cards that fit into the that fit into other bracket 4 decks, like all cards that perfectly combine with each other and make very strong combinations of cards that do great combos. That's bracket 4. Is absurdly optimized to the point where there's almost no theme, you're just trying to win. And then bracket 5 is its own thing, you're just playing around the CEDH meta. I'm not going to talk about bracket 5 at all because it's a whole different talk, and bracket 5s are weird. But the main distinction is bracket 2s and 3s because these are the two most popular decks that exist. Bracket 2s, the restrictions are going to say, like I said earlier, and then bracket 3s are going to say similar restrictions, but are going to add that you can have at least 3 game changers. I think these are a little confusing, but we'll get into that. The most important thing about decks is consistency, something that the tables never talk about. And this is the most important thing to think about. A bracket 1 can beat a bracket 1, a 2, a 3, or even a 4. Even though the bracket 1's not thinking about beating these decks, it can. Does that mean that the bracket 1 is now a 4 because it beat a 4? No. The bracket 1 is a bracket 1. It's about consistency. This is a starting hand, or 4 cards in a starting hand, that is very plausible in any of these brackets. Every one of these brackets can run these cards, and it won't change what bracket they're in. But this starting hand can dramatically change the game. If you get this starting hand in your bracket 2 deck, and you're maybe playing against a bracket 3 or even a bracket 4, and your opponent didn't get a starting hand like this, you might win the game. In fact, you'll probably win the game, assuming that the rest of your deck is built pretty well. Because on turn 1, you'll play Island, Soul Ring, or Consignet, giving you access to 5 mana if you play a land on the next turn, and then 7 mana on the next turn if you play another land and that talisman. 7 mana on turn 3 in a bracket 2 is possible, as you can see right here, and it's really good. But that doesn't mean that your bracket 2 is no longer a bracket 2. It just means you got a great starting hand. The main thing is consistency. The consistency matters. How often are you going to get a starting hand like this? Not very often. And if somebody's getting this starting hand every game, you can call them out for stacking their deck or whatever. But you're not going to get this starting hand very often. When you do, it's going to be very oppressive, and it's going to show that it's oppressive. But, again, you're not going to see it every time. And when you do, it should win you the game, assuming your other opponent got unlucky. This isn't chess. When you beat a bracket 4 with a bracket 2, your bracket 2 doesn't upgrade to a 4 after beating them. Your bracket 2 is still a bracket 2. The idea is how consistently can you get 7 mana out. If a bracket 4 is built around the idea of I'm going to get 7 mana on turn 3 and I'm going to try and win the game, then yeah, I mean, they're going to do that pretty consistently. If your bracket 2 is built around I'm going to get 7 mana on turn 3 and win consistently, your bracket 2 is not a bracket 2. You've been lying to everybody. But it doesn't mean it can't do that. So I think another thing that's problematic is the win by turn blank. Winning by turn 8+ is what they say makes a bracket 2. This is wrong. I think they're missing a very crucial word. Instead of saying win by, it should say consistently win by. Consistently, bracket 2s should perform in a manner that wins them the game against other bracket 2s at around turn 8 or higher. But if a bracket 2 gets a starting hand like this against a bunch of bracket 2s that didn't get a starting hand like this, well, I don't think they're going to win by turn 8. I think they're going to win dramatically earlier. But just because they win by turn 4, 5, or 6 doesn't mean that they're now not a bracket 2. If you're playing a Voltron bracket 2 deck and you get a starting hand like this and you can make your commander humongous and deal 21 and kill somebody on turn 3 or kill somebody on turn 4 and then kill another person on turn 5, well, that's a really good game. You got so lucky, but your deck doesn't inherently mean that it's now not a bracket 2 anymore just because you managed to do that once. You just got lucky. And that's, again, about consistency. Now that I've explained the turns and how that's has nuances and doesn't make as much sense, it's all about consistency, I'm now going to talk about another thing that's very misinterpreted, misunderstood. No mass land denial. This is the bane of people's ears. They don't want to hear the word land denial, land destruction. It scares people because of how bad of a reputation it has within the Magic community. The main thing is that what's misunderstood is land denial and land destruction are two distinctly different words, and they mean extremely different things. Land destruction is completely viable in every bracket. And I think it is extra viable in brackets 1 and 2. Because of how bracket 1 and 2 work and how slow they work, a land board wipe, destroying every land, acts the same as destroying every creature. And now some people are going to respond to that quote and say, well, land destruction's lame. And I would like to battle you on that, because it's not lame. Land destruction is lame if used incorrectly, just the same as most mechanics in the game. Land destruction, the point of it, and the way you're supposed to play it, is if you are in the lead and everybody else is behind you by a large margin, what's the best way to keep that lead? Well, it's by not letting anybody build up their boards. Do you have 800 counterspells in hand to stop people from playing cards? No. So what you can do is you can blow up every land and slowly kill people while they try to build up. Or not even slowly. Maybe quickly kill people while they build up if you're at a high enough advantage to win the game off this. Playing a big mass land board wipe doesn't mean that the game has to take longer. In fact, it typically makes the game take a lot less time. And Commander's all about the time constraints because it's such a long format. Now, what mass land denial means is very important. And there's a reason it says no mass land denial. Mass land denial is something that denies players from using their lands or using them in the way they're supposed to. Maybe there's a card that makes it so you cannot tap lands anymore, or a combo that makes it so you can't tap lands anymore. That is mass land denial. Another example of mass land denial is forcing people's lands to tap for a specific color. There's a very famous card called Blood Moon that turns all non-basic lands into mountains, which means those lands can no longer tap for anything but red. That's all they do. They tap for a red. They are a basic, or not a basic, sorry. They are just a mountain. That is also mass land denial. If you're playing against somebody who's not playing red, that ends the game for them right then and there. They don't lose, but now they're stuck in this dirtle zone where they can't do anything. That's what mass land denial is. So the big difference between mass land denial and mass land destruction, mass land denial, especially in brackets 1 and 2, and in some cases 3, is completely uncounterable. You can't stop it. There's no counterplay. Once it hits the board, you lose the game. That's why it is not allowed in brackets 1, 2, and in most cases 3. While mass land destruction doesn't stop the game, it doesn't make you lose on the spot, but it slows your board state down and allows somebody to keep progressing. Let's go back to the Voltron strategy. Let's say you have your Voltron commander out and he's at a 50-50 with trample. That's an extremely oppressive card. You're worried that somebody's going to destroy maybe a very vital piece on your board, or that they'll build up enough creatures to be able to just block you. Well, if you destroy every land, you don't have to worry about that anymore, and now you can kill off everybody each turn. That's an easy way to win the game after already having been in the lead. This works best in brackets 1 and 2. So I think people getting scared of mass land destruction in brackets 1 and 2 is built around either the misunderstanding of the word land denial or off of the misunderstood stigma around what mass land destruction is. The bad parts of mass land destruction is just when people use it to make the game take longer. That's what makes land destruction bad. Otherwise, it's just a mechanic in the game that should be used. But that is a little bit of a controversial topic, even though I don't think it should be, based off of what I said. But people can feel free to battle me on that. Anyways, big consensus with all this. I've talked about this a lot. I'm sure this video has gone on for a long time. Main thing, play your deck to figure out its bracket. You're not going to know your deck's bracket just off of what a computer tells you based off an algorithm from a table that they are fed. Any deck or building software like Moxfield, Architect is going to tell you, based off the cards in your library, your deck's a bracket 2. Oh, your deck's an optimized bracket 4, or so on. That doesn't it can be right, but it doesn't inherently mean it is. You have to play your deck to figure that out. How consistent is your deck? They're probably saying your deck is a bracket 4 because maybe it has one infinite combo in it. I think that's more likely to make your deck a bracket 3 rather than a 4. If you only have one infinite combo and you have no real way to grab it, it's not going to consistently come out. But when it does, that's going to be very strong. Or maybe they're going to be saying your deck's a bracket 4 because you have a land destruction card. A big issue is a lot of these softwares don't know the difference between land destruction and land denial. And that's important. So play your deck to figure out its bracket. How consistently is it playing? When you're playing against other bracket 2s, do you feel like you're a bully at the table and you're always ahead of everybody? Maybe your deck's not a bracket 2. Or maybe your opponent's decks aren't bracket 2s. Maybe they're closer to 1s. Or maybe your deck's just a stronger bracket 2. Bracket 2 is the weirdest one because it makes for the most confusion because of how big of a variety there is in power level. Moving on, follow the bracket chart, but don't feel stuck to it. Again, we already talked about this. The bracket chart's flawed. It's been flawed since it came out, and it has never not been flawed. It is a super simplified description of how to understand the bracket system. But because it's super simplified, not everything's explained. So yeah, follow the bracket chart to help yourself make a deck, but you're allowed to deviate from it. You don't have to think about it as a end-all be-all of how the game works, but rather just a thing to help you out. Then a poorly built deck is not a higher bracket because of a couple cards. I just talked about this, so I don't need to regurgitate information, but if you have no way to consistently get out things, and there's one really good thing in your deck, you're not going to consistently get it. And so just because that thing's in your deck doesn't make your deck a high level bracket or high bracket power. You get what I'm saying. Anyways, thanks for watching.